The message came in the dead of night, encrypted and marked urgent. Quinn Marley had seen his fair share of distress signals, but something about this one felt different. It wasn't a plea from a stranded pilot or a failing colony. It was a direct order, stamped with the insignia of the Galactic Dominion. And worse still, the name attached to it was one that made even hardened mercenaries shudder. Commander Valeris. Quinn rubbed the sleep from his eyes and read the message again, hoping he had misinterpreted it. You are to report to Sector 49T immediately. Your skills are required for an urgent repair aboard the Relic-class vessel Erebus. Non-compliance will result in revocation of your mechanic's license and further disciplinary action. He exhaled sharply, muttering a curse under his breath. The Erebus. He had heard rumors of that ship, an obsolete war relic, abandoned decades ago, left to drift in deep space like a forgotten corpse. No one ever spoke of what happened to the crew, only that it was a place best left undisturbed, and now he was being sent there. He had half a mind to reject the order outright. No one in their right mind willingly got involved with Valeris, a man notorious for his ruthless tactics and complete disregard for life. But turning down a Dominion order wasn't an option. If they wanted a mechanic out there, it meant something was very wrong. With a resigned sigh, Quinn powered up his ship, the Wayfarer, an old but reliable freighter he had spent years fine-tuning. As the engines roared to life, he keyed in the coordinates. His gut twisted with unease. The Erebus was waiting. And whatever had broken on that ship, he had a sinking feeling it wasn't just machinery. The Erebus loomed before him like a ghost of war, its massive hull covered in battle scars, floating in the vast emptiness of space. The ship was ancient, a relic from a time when the Dominion ruled through brute force and fear. Most ships of its class had been dismantled or scrapped. So why was this one still here? Quinn docked the Wayfarer, carefully, his hands steady on the controls despite the tension coiling in his chest. The Erebus had no active distress signals, no beacons, no signs of life. Only the Dominion override code had granted him access, forcing open the ship's docking clamps with a groan of reluctant metal. As he stepped onto the boarding ramp, the air inside the Erebus hit him like a wall. It was stale, thick with dust and decay, the scent of metal left to rot. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the corridor walls. His footsteps echoed too loudly. He pulled out his portable scanner, running diagnostics on the ship's core systems. Power was failing. Life support running, on reserves. The ship had clearly been neglected for years, so why send him now? He followed the data trail, moving deeper into the vessel. The halls were eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of shifting metal, like the ship was groaning in protest at his presence. Then, through the dim lighting, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Chains, thick, industrial grade, shackles bolted to the floor in one of the smaller chambers, their edges rusted and worn from time, and attached to them, a small, shivering creature. Quinn's breath caught in his throat. It was a wolf, or at least it looked like one. Its fur was dark, matted with neglect, its ribs showing through its emaciated frame. But its eyes, golden and piercing, flickering with something dangerously close to awareness, made it clear this wasn't just some animal. It was watching him, studying him, assessing whether he was a threat or a savior. Quinn swallowed hard. He hadn't expected this. He had thought he was here to fix engines, not find a prisoner, and if this wolf had been chained here, left alone for years, then that meant someone had done it deliberately. A sick feeling settled in his gut. Commander Valeris, the Dominion's most ruthless officer, had sent him here, not to fix a ship, not to save anything, but to clean up his cruelty. And Quinn Marley was about to make a very dangerous decision. The chamber was dead silent, save for the distant hum of the failing power core. The wolf pup didn't move, didn't even flinch as Quinn took a slow step forward. Its body was unnaturally still, its breath coming in shallow, uneven waves. Quinn's gaze flickered to the chains binding it to the floor. Too tight. Too heavy. The steel cuffs were crude but effective, bolted directly into the flooring as if someone had meant for them never to be removed. He knelt cautiously, placing his tool bag on the ground. The pup's ears twitched at the soft sound, but it remained motionless, those golden eyes locked onto him. "Hey, kid," Quinn murmured, keeping his voice low, steady. "You don't look so good." It didn't respond, but he hadn't expected it to. Not yet. He reached for a scanner, running a quick diagnostic on the pup's vitals. The results flashed across his visor screen and his stomach twisted at what he saw. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, signs of prolonged muscle atrophy. Whoever had chained this pup here hadn't just left it behind. They had left it to die, slowly. A quiet fury simmered beneath Quinn's skin, but he forced himself to focus. He wasn't going to let anger slow him down. Carefully, he reached toward the cuffs, examining the locks. Old but reinforced. He could slice through them with his fusion cutter, but the heat would burn the pup if he wasn't careful. "I'm going to get you out of here," he said, more to himself than to the wolf. He pulled out his compact plasma torch, adjusting the settings to a low, controlled flame. The moment the blue light ignited, the pup tensed. Its muscles coiled, and for the first time, Quinn saw something beneath the weakness. Instinct. Survival. But it didn't lash out, didn't try to escape. It just watched him, waiting. Quinn worked quickly, guiding the torch carefully along the first shackle. Sparks flared in the dim light, the scent of burning metal mixing with rust and age. The heat radiated close to the pup's thin fur, but it didn't cry out, didn't flinch. It had learned not to show pain. The first cuff snapped open, clattering onto the floor. The pup's ear flicked. Quinn moved to the second shackle, his hands steady despite the fury boiling in his chest. Who the hell chains up a kid like this? The second lock hissed as it melted under the torch. Another snap. Another piece of metal hitting the floor. And then, freedom. The pup staggered, its thin legs trembling as it shifted for the first time in what had to be years. Quinn moved fast, catching it before it could collapse completely. Its body was so light. Too light, like a breath of wind could shatter it. He exhaled sharply, adjusting his grip so he wouldn't hurt the fragile creature. "Okay, buddy, you're out. Let's get the hell out of here before..." The ship lurched violently. An alarm blared, sharp and jarring. Quinn froze. That was a proximity alert. Someone was coming, and they weren't alone. The Erebus shuddered, metal groaning as the relic ship's sensors flared to life. Quinn's heart hammered against his ribs as he hoisted the weak pup into his arms, his mind racing. The Dominion wasn't just checking in. They had arrived. Through the cracked viewport, he saw the cold, looming shape of an Imperial-class warship, dropping out of hyperspace. Its hull gleamed with the Dominion's insignia, a beast carved into steel, its fanged maw open in eternal hunger. Valeris. The cruel bastard had been watching. Quinn barely had time to curse before the comm system crackled to life. The voice that followed was smooth, refined, dangerous in the way only true power could be. "Mr. Marley," Valeris greeted, his tone almost amused. "You're late in your report. I do hope you haven't been distracted." Quinn didn't answer, his jaw clenched as he scanned the room for an exit. There was no way he was walking out of this one. The pup in his arms stirred weakly, its tiny claws flexing against his jacket. Valeris continued, his voice now edged with cold amusement. "I assume you found our little project. A fascinating specimen, isn't it? Years of genetic refinement and yet utterly useless. I had nearly forgotten it existed." Quinn's grip tightened around the pup. He left it here on purpose. Valeris wasn't just cruel. He was deliberate. The Dominion didn't tolerate weakness, and this pup, small, sickly, fragile, it had been nothing more than a failed experiment. Left to rot. Quinn felt something dark and unshakable settle in his chest. "You're not here for repairs, are you?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. A soft chuckle echoed through the comms. "No, Mr. Marley. I'm here to clean up an old mistake. The meaning was clear. This wasn't about the ship, it was about the wolf. They had never intended for anyone to retrieve it. The Dominion wanted it, erased, and now, Quinn was in their way. The warship's weapons charged, the distant hum of their cannons vibrating through the Erebus's hull. Quinn moved. He bolted down the corridor, cradling the pup close as he sprinted toward the docking bay. He knew the layout of old ships like this, knew that if he could just reach the emergency escape tunnels, he might have a chance. Behind him, the distant clang of metal boots hitting the floor sent a spike of fear through his spine. They had boarded. Valeris wasn't wasting time. Quinn vaulted over a broken console, pushing his body harder than he had in. The docking bay was ahead. His freighter, still waiting. Then a plasma bolt tore past his shoulder, hitting the bulkhead beside him in a burst of searing heat. The Dominion soldiers had found him. Quinn ducked behind a crate, his heart hammering. No way out. No time to get the ship ready for takeoff before they gunned him down. The pup whimpered softly, its small body pressing closer to his chest. Quinn clenched his jaw. He wasn't leaving without it. And if Valeris thought he could just wipe this kid out like a failed experiment, then he had seriously underestimated just how stubborn Quinn Marley could be. The engine room was 2 decks below. If he could overload the ship's reactor, cause a chain reaction, a big enough distraction, he might be able to make it. It was a long shot, but it was better than letting this kid die here. Gritting his teeth, Quinn shifted his grip on the pup, whispered, "Hold on tight, buddy," and made a run for it. Quinn ran like hell. Plasma fire screamed. Behind him, slamming into the bulkhead with sizzling precision. Dominion soldiers weren't known for missing. If they wanted him dead, he'd already be a smoldering corpse. They wanted him alive. That meant Valeris wanted a word before the killing started. Too bad Quinn wasn't in the mood to talk. He clutched the pup tighter as he skidded into a side corridor, forcing his body into a sharp turn just as another bolt of plasma seared past his head. The pup let out a soft, frightened whimper against his chest, but it didn't squirm, didn't fight him. It trusted him now. That trust made something burn in Quinn's gut. He had to get them both out of here. Ahead, the passage sloped downward into a set of maintenance ladders leading toward the engine room. It was a gamble. If the engines were too far gone, there would be no way to trigger an overload, but he had no other options. His boots hit the ladder rungs hard as he climbed down, heart hammering in his ears. He barely made it to the grated floor of the engine deck before a distant voice echoed through the ship's comm system. "Mr. Marley." Valeris's voice was silk-wrapped steel, dripping with amusement. "You're making this unnecessarily difficult." Quinn ignored him. He sprinted across the catwalk, weaving between rusted support beams. "This is your last chance," Valeris continued, voice as cold as a void drift. "Surrender now, and I'll consider making your execution painless. Refuse, and I'll let my men take their time." Quinn wasn't about to grace that with a response. The engine room was in sight, a cavernous space vast and dark, lined with outdated power relays that had long since fallen into disrepair. But the main core was still active, pulsing faintly in the dim light. Good. It meant he could still make this work. He set the pup down carefully beside a fallen crate. "Stay here, kid," he muttered. The little wolf let out a low, uncertain whine but didn't try to follow as Quinn darted toward the nearest control panel. He wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying across the rusted interface as he bypassed security. Codes, forcing the system to wake up. The ship had been running on emergency reserves for years. The core wouldn't last much longer, but it didn't need to. He wasn't looking for long-term survival. He just needed a really big explosion. A warning flashed across the screen. Overload imminent. Chapter 6. Escape or death, the countdown had begun. Minutes. Perfect. Quinn turned on his heel, ready to grab the pup and bolt, only to nearly slam straight into a Dominion soldier. The man's visor glowed red in the dim light, his rifle aimed squarely at Quinn's chest. Quinn barely had time to curse before the soldier lunged, slamming him hard against the control panel. Pain exploded through his ribs, the rifle pressed to his temple. Step away from the system. Now. The soldier's voice was sharp, distorted through his modulator. Quinn's mind raced. He had seconds to act. He didn't think. He reacted. His knees shot up, slamming into the soldier's gut. The Dominion bastard stumbled back, thrown off balance. Quinn grabbed the closest tool, an old rusted wrench, and swung it with everything he had. Crack, the impact sent the soldier sprawling. Quinn didn't wait. He dove for the pup, scooping it into his arms just as the alarm blared louder. Minute left. The ship was seconds from turning into a fireball, and he was still trapped in the belly of the beast. The Dominion warship loomed closer, too close. Quinn could feel its gravity well pressing against the failing structure of the Erebus, the metallic groan of the wreck buckling under the strain. They were trying to hold it in place, preparing to board. Again. Not happening, Quinn growled. He sprinted through the corridors, lungs burning, muscles screaming for relief. The pup clung to his jacket, tiny claws digging in, breath ragged against his chest. Every hallway looked the same, dark, rusted, broken, but he knew exactly where he needed to go. The escape pods. The Dominion had ignored them, assuming no one was stupid enough to hijack a relic escape system. But Quinn knew better. The Erebus was old, sure, but so was he. He'd spent years fixing ships just like this one, learning every outdated trick in the book. And if there was one thing Quinn Marley knew how to do, it was making an old engine run when it shouldn't. The first pod was dead, on arrival, controls fried. The second was locked in stasis, its launch sequence overridden by Imperial protocol. The third, operational. Quinn didn't hesitate. He slammed the emergency activation, punching the panel so hard the screen flickered. The pod's thrusters roared to life, its doors hissed open. The air inside was stale but breathable. Seconds. No time left. Quinn jumped inside, the pup still clutched in his arms, and slammed his fist against the launch controls. The hatch sealed, the engines engaged, and then the Erebus exploded. The shockwave ripped through the void. Fire and shattered steel consumed everything behind them. The force of the blast sent the pod spinning violently, throwing Quinn against the seat. The pup let out a startled yelp, tumbling into his lap, tiny claws scrambling for purchase. Quinn gritted his teeth, bracing himself. Through the viewport, the Dominion warship was caught in the blast radius. Its shields flared bright against the inferno. They'd been too close. The explosion's force sent the flagship reeling, its systems failing in a burst of flickering lights. Quinn didn't look back. The pod's autopilot engaged, stabilizing their course, hurtling them away from the wreckage, away from the Dominion, away from Valeris. For the first time in years, Quinn let himself breathe. His arms loosened around the pup, fingers brushing against the soft fur beneath his jacket. The little wolf was trembling, but alive. Its golden eyes locked onto Quinn's face with something close to relief. They had made it. Somehow. The screen in front of him flickered, displaying coordinates for a nearby neutral zone. They weren't safe yet, but they were far enough that Valeris would have to think twice before sending another hunt after them. Quinn exhaled hard, leaning his head back against the seat. He glanced down at the pup, shaking his head with a breathless chuckle. "You got me into a lot of trouble, kid." The pup blinked up at him. Then slowly, almost hesitantly, it nuzzled against his chest. Something in Quinn's chest ached. He let his hand rest against its tiny back, feeling its small heartbeat finally slowing. For the first time in what was probably years, whatever happened next, whatever fight was waiting for them out there, they were in it together. The escape pod drifted in the cold abyss, the vast emptiness of space, stretching beyond the viewport. The Dominion warship was nothing but a distant smolder, its systems struggling to recover from the shockwave of the Erebus's destruction. Quinn had bought them time, but not freedom. Valeris wasn't dead, and the Dominion never forgot. Quinn adjusted his seat, feeling the bruises bloom across his ribs from the pod's violent launch. Every muscle in his body ached, but that wasn't his biggest concern. He turned his gaze downward to the small, fragile creature curled against his chest. The pup had finally stopped trembling. Its breathing had evened out, but exhaustion had taken its toll. The little thing had spent who knew how long chained up in that prison of a ship, barely clinging to life. It was a miracle it was even still breathing. Carefully, Quinn loosened his grip, shifting the pup onto the seat beside him. It stirred but didn't resist. The golden eyes flickered open just for a moment, scanning him, weary, but no longer afraid. Quinn exhaled through his nose, dragging a hand through his sweat-damp hair. "You and me both, buddy," he muttered. "No rest for the damned." The pod's navigation system beeped, displaying the estimated time to the neutral zone, a small outpost station on the outskirts of Dominion space. It wasn't much, but it was somewhere. Somewhere. To regroup. Somewhere to figure out what came next. Then, an alert flashed red across the screen. Quinn's stomach dropped. They weren't alone. Quinn's stomach dropped as the alert flashed red. A small ship had broken away from the Dominion wreck, tailing them a Hunter-class interceptor, not a warship, something faster, smaller, built for pursuit. This wasn't an army. Valeris had sent one ship, which meant whoever was inside wasn't just some random soldier. This wasn't a standard retrieval. This was personal. Quinn clenched his jaw, fingers hovering over the pods, controls searching for anything he could use. But escape pods weren't built for combat. No shields, no weapons, no options. The only thing keeping them alive was distance for now. The pup stirred, ears flicking as if sensing Quinn's unease. It let out a small, questioning whimper. Quinn forced a grin, nudging its side gently. Yeah, I know. You don't like this either. But deep down, he knew. They weren't making it to the neutral zone without a fight, and he had nothing left to fight with. The interceptor closed the distance fast, its sleek hull gleaming in the void. The Dominion insignia was boldly painted. Along its side, Quinn's hands tightened into fists. Then, a direct hail flashed across the screen. They wanted to talk. He debated ignoring it. But if this was a bounty hunter, a tracker, or worse, one of Valeris's personal enforcers, he needed to stall. With a resigned sigh, Quinn tapped the console. The transmission connected. The screen crackled to life. A face appeared, a woman, sharp eyes, a predatory smirk. Her uniform bore no rank, only a single sigil. One Quinn immediately recognized. The mark of the Inquisitors. Not soldiers. Not bounty hunters, executioners. Quinn's stomach turned to lead. She tilted her head slightly, voice smooth, almost amused. "Quinn Marley," she mused. "You've caused quite the mess." He gritted his teeth. "It's a habit." Her eyes flicked downward, toward the wolf pup curled beside him. Her smirk widened. "I see you found our lost pet." Something burned inside Quinn at those words. Pet, like the pup was property, like it was just a broken thing to be discarded. Forced his voice to stay even. "And I take it you're here to drag me back?" The Inquisitor chuckled, soft, mocking. "Oh no, Valeris doesn't want you alive anymore." She leaned forward, cockpit shadows darkening her face. "You burned that bridge the moment you ran." A chill crept down Quinn's spine. But her gaze lingered on the pup, something calculating in her expression. "That's a different story." Quinn's blood ran cold. They still wanted the pup. Even after everything, even after they'd left it to rot, shackled, abandoned, they still wanted it back. Which meant it wasn't just some experiment, it was something more, something valuable. Quinn's fingers brushed against his belt,